We're going to look at all 10 weapons from the Echoes episode and break down all the best PvP and PvE god rolls that you should craft when you get these patterns. I won't be covering how to get them. Other people are going to have their farming guides out, I'm sure, because what I wanted to focus on today was strictly the god roll, the best crafting combinations. I'll also be making a guide for the Salvation's Edge raid weapons as well, so keep an eye out for that. There are some very intriguing weapons in that raid. If there's anything you specifically want to know about, I've got chapters you can skip around to. You can also leave a comment. I'll respond to those as much as I can. Otherwise, just sit back and enjoy, and we're going to work our way through. Also, leave a like. It really helps. At number 1, we've got Veiled Threat, a Stasis rapid-fire auto rifle. Stasis has got some really nice buffs with the drop of the final shape, and Veiled Threat has the classics that'll work just fine with your Stasis build. For PvE, I'm looking at Headstone in the second column. Definitely a classic. Creating crystals is never going to hurt. There's also Collective Action, which is an easy damage buff to proc since Stasis crystals are a near constant. Desperate Measures is also very nice since your abilities in tandem with weapon kills grant a strong and easily refreshed damage buff. That's a trait I've certainly grown fond of since Into the Light. Any of these traits paired with Loose Change would be fantastic. Since you're constantly slowing and freezing enemies with stasis, Loose Change is going to be granting increased reload and accuracy, which should help keep things moving. Rapid fire autos burn through their magazines pretty quick, so it's nice to have a fast reload. On top of the reload speed, I actually think the increase in aim assist is going to be helpful even in PvE, because if you're using a trait like Headstone, it's going to grant that stasis crystal, but only if it's a precision kill, and rapid fires kind of struggle with that. You're firing 720 shots per minute, and if one of those lands a body shot kill, well, then no crystal for you. So I think Loose Change is going to help you secure those headshots a little bit more. Last trait you may want to try as a Warlock or Titan is a new trait in the first column called Strategist, which grants class ability on kills. I wouldn't really worry about this for Hunters since dodge comes back pretty quick, but Warlocks and Titans with something like Hoarfrost or Frost Pulse can absolutely take advantage of their class abilities to boost their builds. And Strategist providing some background regeneration might be kind of nice for that. Now for PvP, I'm liking the looks of Fragile Focus and Gut Shot straight. Fragile Focus is going to be active typically for the first half of your duels, and it's a nice bump in range. It's a solid plus 20 out of the gate. Obviously, you'll lose it as you take damage, but rapid fires can struggle with range a little bit, and a boost for even half a duel can make a big difference. As for Gut Shot, that's going to boost your body shot damage and grant a little more forgiveness, although it does cost some accuracy. You can reduce that penalty by enhancing Gut Shot straight, but we'll see, man. Some weapons you can get by with Gut Shot, some weapons with Gut Shot are just a flaming dumpster. We'll just have to test it out. It's just totally a feel thing. If you don't want to deal with the negatives of Gut Shot and just want something more consistent, then I'd try Moving Target. Encore is also an enticing option to crank your stats and accuracy after landing a kill as well. So if you're the kind of player that's good enough to chain a lot of kills, I wouldn't count Encore out. Weapons like Rufus's Fury are absolutely competitive in PvP, so we'll see if the traits and stats here on Veiled Threat hold up. Moving on to weapon number 2 is Lost Signal, which I was told was a legendary Wither Horde. Naturally, I was pretty excited, so I went to the Altars of Sorrow to test on the universal firing range. I guess I didn't believe the text when it said that it was a grenade launcher that fires a burst of grenades. I don't even know if it's a good weapon, but I love these interesting twists that we're getting on weapon archetype. Seeing as it's called an area denial frame, I imagine in PvP it'll do just that. Close off a lane and buy some time, even if it's just for a couple seconds. AoE weapons effects aren't typically big time damage in the Crucible, they're usually just more of a deterrent. Either way, quick draw or auto-loading holster is probably the play here for either fast ready speed or a fire and forget kind of play style. Second column's pretty weak for PvP, to be honest. I might just try high ground for the rare, interesting scenario that you might be able to proc it. Personally, I'm a lot more interested in PvE, and there are definitely traits that are going to help you there. First column has auto-loading, of course, led from gold, and strategist. Those first two I mentioned are always great in PvE, keeping your ammo loaded or at least stocked, and strategist again might be an option if you wanted to combine it with demolitionist for some dual ability regen for your stasis builds. Otherwise, there's also feeding frenzy or stats for all that you could use for fast reloads in combination with damage in the second column like Vorpal and One for All. Personally, I like the look of One for All since you're not really looking to clear adds like a Waveframe does as much as you are locking things down and stacking on some extra damage. One for All procs even if you're not getting kills, it's just hitting 3 different targets, so that's definitely a nice benefit. Now that said, I am highly interested in Reverberation, which grants larger detonations for a short time after landing kills. Depending on how large the increase is, that might well be worth the play as well, so your kills can turn into more kills. And before we move on, there's a pretty interesting origin trait on all these weapons as well. Radiolaria Transposer states that rapid final blows will spawn a Radiolarian pool, so that's kind of awesome. That origin trait is on all 10 of these weapons today, so remember that just as we move forward. But basically, multi-kills are just going to grant a little spot of radial area that's going to act as some extra AoE damage. Considering Lost Signal is all about AoE, that would stack up perfectly with the lingering damage pools. Some origin traits look fun on paper and end up being garbage, so I guess we'll see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's good. Either way, really goofy, interesting weapon, and it's awesome to see some creative new archetypes entering the pool. Speaking of interesting new archetypes, weapon number 3 kind of falls in that category as well. Corrasion is a heavy burst, 2-shot arc pulse rifle. We already have some in the game like this, like Graviton Lance or Revision Zero, but this is our first legendary heavy burst pulse rifle, so that's pretty awesome. The archetype states that it reduces incoming flinch while aiming, so I'm definitely curious how Corrasion is going to perform in PvP. First column's got perpetual motion and enlightened action, while second column has Eye of the Storm and maybe high ground. There's not a lot of PvP options in the second column. Either way, I think either of these stat boosting traits from the first column are really going to help with the pain point of many pulse rifles, which is handling and reload. They can feel kind of clunky sometimes, so those are going to help. And then combined with Eye of the Storm, it might make for an interesting dueling weapon. It's going to boost your accuracy and make duels feel just a little bit better. This weapon kind of feels like it could go either way for me. I could see it handling really nicely and landing clean kills. Could also see it falling flat on its face versus other highly competitive options. You know, some weapons are decent, but it's just a matter of the sandbox. As for PvE, I have some roles I'm really interested in though. Enlightened action for snappy handling and constantly fast reloads is really great. Combined with Volt Shot and you're good to go. That's basically all you need out of an arc weapon in 2024. I would like to say you could use Swashbuckler, but there's not really a real point to that. If you're that close to melee, you probably have a good enough build to just ignore your guns anyways, and you don't really want to pull out a heavy burst long range pulse rifle in CQC. So for damage in general, I would just go with One for All or Focused Fury. Neither of those require kills, and you don't have to be close to do it either. I have a new arc build that I'm working on that I got on the way, and I'm highly interested in this weapon for it, specifically for the extra range and Bolt Shot, so keep an eye out for that. If you want to catch that video, you can do that by subscribing and hitting the notification bell that's been broken for like 10 years now. For number 4, we've got Sightline Survey. We're not done with arc yet, since this is a precision frame arc hand cannon. If I had a wager, precisions are probably the least competitive archetype of hand cannons in PvP, but that doesn't mean they're no good. They're very comfortable to use, and they're just a little bit more forgiving than 120s and 140s. We've got easily managed recoil, half decent kill time. The way I see it, if you want to learn how to use hand cannons, just start with precisions because they're really a lot more comfortable than standard hand cannons. You're going to lose duels you maybe could have won with a 140, but you get consistency out of these hand cannons. So if you want to lean into that consistency even more, I would roll with Keep Away and Eye of the Storm. That's going to improve your range and accuracy at your typical engagement ranges, and then Eye of the Storm to buff your accuracy as you progress through the duel. And you may never know exactly if it made the difference in the moment, but odds are it might, and you never know when you'll find yourself in the game winning or losing duel. It's just kind of frustrating because it's one of those perks that's hard to quantify. You don't have a hard test environment where you can see if you would or would have not made that shot per se. Just my opinion. I know it's not a perk for everybody, but if you're looking for consistency, Eye of the Storm is probably the way to go. Another interesting combo to me is Fragile Focus and Eye of the Storm as well. Fragile Focus grants plus 20 range while your shields are up, so obviously you're going to lose that perk if your duel persists long enough, but then as Fragile Focus fails, Eye of the Storm is kicking in. So no matter which end of the duel you're on, whether it's opening fire or getting killed by Rose again, you'll have some kind of buff helping in that duel. 180s are not the most competitive archetype, but some of them feel really solid in the Crucible, and you never know when the next 80 is that one. Now if you want something simpler, there's also Kill Clip, which is a classic, simple damage buff, good enough to land you the 3-tap. It's going to land you the 3 crit on tier 10 and 9 resilience, and 2 crit 1 body, anything below tier 8. I would probably pair that with Keep Away for quick reloads, better accuracy, then you got Kill Clip for the improved TTK or Forgiveness. That would feel really nice. Again, just gotta give it a try. Some 180s feel great, some not so much. As for PvE, you've got the usual suspects. Enlightened action in the first column for fast reloads. There's also Keep Away and Strategist. Second column has Volt Shot and Desperate Measures. I think those are probably your best bet for consistent results. Volt Shot's just kind of hard to beat in PvE, and especially with the artifact, I think arc abilities are worth taking advantage of this episode. Hand cannons are doing a lot better than they used to, so I would definitely give this one a try. Fifth on the list is Timeworn Wayfarer, a solar aggressive frame scout rifle. I gotta say, it's really strange to see rifle in the style of an old 1800s lever action rifle, but then all vexed up. It's like a hybrid future and archaic look at the same time. It's cool. What's less cool is how aggressive scout rifles actually perform in the Crucible. They're not terrible, but last time I used them, I was just getting beat by better options non-stop. When you slot on an aggressive scout rifle, it just kind of feels like you're willingly debuffing yourself. They don't handle flinch super well, and if you miss a shot, it's devastating to your kill time. 1 second optimal kill time is already kind of a stretch, and you gotta have a really clean duel if you're gonna beat someone else that kills closer to 0.7 seconds like most other weapons in the sandbox. That said, if you can get going, it's really satisfying. So let's see at least what traits give us the best shot. First column has Keep Away, which feels like the natural PvP choice. Increased accuracy to improve your chances of landing a crit is really important, combined with Snapshot for super snappy handling, Opening Shot for a near guaranteed first crit, or Eye of the Storm. I think you'd do alright. Again, not my favorite archetype in the current meta, but to each his own. Now for PvE, I think this is where aggressives get a little more fun. In the first column, you've got Dual Loader, which recently had its reload nerf removed, so every reloaded shell would count as 4 on this aggressive scout. That's going to help with the reload speed a lot. It's kind of always plagued aggressive scouts, but I think Dual Loader is going to help a lot. There's also Heal Clip, which you can easily proc as you go just by landing a single kill and then popping in 1 shell and resuming fire. Heal Clip is kind of incredible now, seeing as it grants Cure ×2 every kill and reload, and Cure ×1 to nearby allies as well. This is a trait I've been really enjoying on weapons like Luna's Howl and Heliocentric, and I think being able to just pop in a single shell with Wayfarer here is going to be really great, just being able to heal yourself super quick and keep slaying out. Combine that with Incandescent to just max out the solar effects, it sounds like actually a pretty good time. And still, don't forget you have that Origin trait here, so you could light up a few targets, reload to restore your health, meanwhile your enemies are all scorched and leaving radiolaria pools behind. That could be pretty awesome. Aggressive scouts can be kind of tough depending on the activity and the range that you're fighting at, but they can be fun to mess around with, and this role seems pretty compelling. At number 6, we have Aberrant Action, a solar rocket sidearm. If you haven't tried a rocket sidearm yet, I highly recommend that you do, because they're surprisingly effective. I didn't think they're going to do a lot of damage when they were announced, and they're actually way better than I thought. Even without artifact synergy, people were using Indebted Kindness all the time last season. So right out of the gate, there's some traits on Aberrant Action here that I think are going to be pretty strong in PvE. Heal Clip and Incandescent, of course, we just talked about. Those have become a go-to combination for me on other weapons over the last few weeks, and I think it'll be a great pairing on Aberrant here as well. Seeing as how easy it'll be to snag kills with the high damage and range that rocket sidearms offer. There's also Ambitious Assassin for overloading the mag, which can be fun, Beacon Rounds for tracking. I think Solar Titans could also get some use out of this with Pugilist to feed some melee energy right into Consecration. Seriously, if you haven't tried Consecration, you should really do it. Bungie buffed it even more in the final shape, and it's just ridiculous. In the second column, we've got Incandescent, like I mentioned, as well as Reverberation for the increased blast radius, which could be pretty nice. Considering how much uptime most solar builds have, Golden Tricorn might also be a solid option, granting up to 50% extra damage. 50% is some of the most damage that you can get from a single trait in Destiny right now, and on top of an archetype that's already performing really well, is going to be legit, so I wouldn't count it out. PvE God roll for me is probably going to be Heal Clip and Incandescent, but I'm also interested to try Pugilist and Golden Tricorn on my Titan, just to mix it up a little bit. In terms of PvP, I wouldn't really recommend any rocket sidearm to anybody. They're just kind of clunky and impractical, and people are flying around way too fast to actually make use of them. Honestly, I don't even know. Bungie didn't really give this thing competitive PvP traits. Weapon number 7 is the Void Trace Rifle Chronophage. Kind of a sick name, because if I'm thinking correctly, it means something like Time Eater. Either way, it's got the usual good Void traits. Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing are an option. Target Lock is a decent flat buff for PvE. Demolitionist for the increased regen. My personal god roll for this thing is probably going to be Repulsor Brace and Desperate Measures. Destabilizing rounds is kind of redundant if you're already running a good Void build, so instead I think I'd run Desperate Measures to give extra damage for synergizing with your builds a little more. So instead, I think running Desperate Measures to give extra damage for synergizing with your builds is going to be the way to go. Both Repulsor and Desperate Measures are strong traits that'll work with your builds instead of in isolation, and I think that'll be pretty great for anyone running, say, Gerfalcon's Hauberk, Nezarec Warlocks, or Controlled Demolition Titans. For PvP, hands down god roll for me is Elemental Capacitor and Target Lock. These days with Prismatic, you can just use an Arc Super to get the handling buff, which is awesome for when you don't want to use the rest of an Arc hit. Trace Rifles typically boast pretty high range and stability stats at base anyway, so I think prioritizing handling would probably be the best. Capacitor and Target Lock together, I think it's just going to give you a really well balanced feel, but a still lethal experience. Trace Rifles, in my opinion, are majorly slept on right now, and I would give this one a try for sure. I made a PvP build well over a year ago with a Trace Rifle that was some of the most fun I've had in PvP in a while, and I think they've only gotten better since then. For weapon number 8, we've got Speleologist. Another beautiful weapon. It's solar machine gun, which to be honest, we've kind of been needing. It's a rapid fire, so you may want to spec into stability a little bit more than you typically would since this thing is a little jumpy. Rapid fires can be a little crazy. Machine guns also have terrible reload speed, so I would not spec into anything like heal clip. It's just going to take way too long. The goal with machine guns is kind of just kill everything before it kills you, so I've definitely got my eye on Envious Assassin and Killing Tally. Envious is going to let you build a massive magazine, getting kills with your other weapons, and then when you finally switch, you can just unload and easily rack up a 30% damage buff with Killing Tally that'll persist for the entire magazine. There's also Deconstruct, which is going to refill your magazine from reserves now. It's not from thin air, unfortunately, so if you really want to just main this thing, Deconstruct and Incandescent would probably be pretty fun too. There's also One for All, Target Lock, Adagio, even Surrounded in the second column for easy bonus damage if you like to play it close. I think personally my god roll is going to be Envious Assassin and Killing Tally, but those other options do look nice as well. For PvP, I'd probably just do Slideways and Adagio. Slideways will help with poor handling, and then Adagio is going to boost the damage, but also help you conserve a little more ammo by slowing down your rate of fire. I don't know that I'd spend too much to craft this thing for PvP, but if you need a decent heavy, then that'll probably be the roll to try. At number 9, we've got Faithkeeper, a much needed void rocket launcher in the precision archetype, so it has built-in tracking. And remember, before you write this thing off, the disparity in damage between rocket launcher archetypes was reduced a number of months ago. Precision rockets are doing a little better than they used to be, although they still do less damage than adaptives and aggressives. With that aside, Faithkeeper actually has some really solid traits. One of my go-to pairings for general play is autoloading holster and explosive light. Really great in Grandmasters or other high-end content. They just swap, fire off a big damage shot, and then stow it, and then start dealing special weapon damage. Not a bad option against bosses, and pretty great for champions. It's just a great all-purpose roll. Now, if you really want to maximize your DPS for a boss phase, then the god roll is probably going to be Clown Cartridge and Explosive Light, especially since you can enhance Explosive Light and allow yourself 7 enhanced rockets instead of just 6. Honestly, one of the better enhanced traits out there. And of course, combined with Clown Cartridge, you're gonna, every time you reload, you're gonna have 2 rockets to fire. Not too bad. Across all rockets, there are certainly better options out there, but we've been needing a good void rocket launcher for a while, and I think the last time we got one was Witch Queen, and that rocket's not very good. Now, before we move on, I did want to point out 2 more rolls that are kind of goofy. I don't use rockets for ad clear very often, but this rocket can roll with a danger zone and reverberation, both of which will increase the blast radius. I have no idea how much that increases when it's stacked together, but it might be hilarious. The better ad clearing roll is probably Danger Zone and Bipod, but the idea of Danger Zone and Reverberation is kind of too funny not to try at some point. Finally, at number 10, we've got Ill Omen, and honestly, I'm gonna tell you to subscribe and follow me on Twitch now and all that stuff, because I figure you'll be gone before I'm done talking about this sword. Caster frames are really fun, but oftentimes that's kind of all they end up being. It's just silly fun, and they're never competitive outside of like regular strikes. That said, the artifact mod is really preferential to swords this episode, so it might be worth a try. Cold Steel freezing and slowing targets can be really interesting in some stasis builds, and I'm sure some Stronghold Titan could make use of that somewhere. You could also opt for Surrounded or One for All for a really simple damage buff. Out of the first column perks, I'd probably say just get Unrelenting. It'll keep you alive, and that's the most important thing in CQC. Other than that, not a super inspiring weapon, but it's at least there if you have some stasis builds you want to try out. And that is all 10 weapons from Echoes. Definitely some interesting weapons in there. Probably most interested in Lost Signal, the grenade launcher, and Corrasion, the pulse rifle the most. But we'll see how these weapons actually play out throughout the season. If you enjoyed the loot guide, leave a like, of course, that really helps out, and subscribe because I do try to do these guides for every new weapon set. Salvation's Edge is next on the list, and I'm really excited for that one. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you guys next time.